And we are recording. Hello, everybody. Beau Jennings here. Thank you again for joining me on my Mercury Lounge live stream interview series. Today, I have a special guest, Maddie Razook. Did I say that right? Razook or
Razook.
Razook? Um, and like I've said with all of my guests so far, this has been a fun excuse to talk to people that I think are interesting, but that I'd never get to talk to. So that's what we're doing today. Maddie is someone that's kind of new to my like awareness. I've heard bits and pieces of her stuff here and there, and then she put out a record a few months ago that a solo record that I listened to quite a bit. It just really resonated with me, and I really dug it. And then I know she also has a rock. I've been in a couple different like rock and roll bands, so I'm happy to have you, Maddie. How you doing?
Thank you for having me, Bo. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be doing this. Thank you.
Are you at your house?
I am. I'm at my house in my room in Oklahoma City right now.
Well, is that where you make your records?
Um, well, it's where I make my records in the sense that this is where I write my music. I usually record with my very good friend Connor, who is a bandmate of mine as well, an amazing sound engineer. The album I put out in December was basically all recorded at his house there. But yeah, this is where I write. Spend a lot of time in here. I've got all my plants, all my things that make me happy in here. So I don't know. I've done the thing before where I've separated um, my music from where I rest. I feel like it's more effective for me this way. Honestly, I like to kind of have an idea and be able to pop right out of bed and just hop on over to my keyboard. I feel like that's how I view my music, is just that it's a part of my life. It's hard to talk about and define what certain things are really, because I just sort of view everything as I'm just expressing these bits and pieces of my life, my observations. It's all just kind of intertwined, happening as one. So I think that's how I like to write. That's how I view my creative process as well.
Man, you talking about getting up. I assume what you're talking about is if you maybe hear like a melody or something in your sleep or in a dream,
Uh,
and then there's that kind of panic. I've had this where I hear something and I kind of panic because I don't have a way to capture it right away, and I really dig it, and I want to do it. Does that happen for you a lot?
oh yeah, it happens for me a lot. I have so many ridiculous voice memos recorded on my phone of me in like a restaurant bathroom, just like like singing like a melody I've heard. I feel like I'm always trying to do that, like immediately um, get something recorded, just get the idea down. I was having that conversation recently with someone. I can't remember what exactly about, but just thinking about before people had cell phones on them all the time, how did they how did they do it? I don't know. Or just even before you could easily record things at all. I feel like that's a huge part of my process, just being able to record little bits and pieces and go back and re-listen to them, whether it be like on my laptop or just on my phone, like a voice memo, like we were talking about. I just can't imagine not being able to do that.
I've thought about that too, and I've thought about how many voice memos are useless also.
Right.
And I that's a really good observation because I've thought about, or you hear this idea that if something is good, it'll like stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's how it used to happen. If you had a melody that you couldn't put in your iPhone, 20 years ago, um, and I guess it just stayed in your head if it was solid enough.
Yeah. And maybe that's even better, that you sort of had to be more intentional with what you were doing. You're like that's a part of the songwriting process, that you're memorizing it as well as you go. Because I feel like that's not really a part of my process, that I'm like trying to memorize anything as I go. More just kind of like stream of consciousness, like let's get it out, let's test stuff out. And then I go back and listen to recordings and I pick out bits and pieces. But yeah, it kind of makes the process just a completely different thing when you think of it that way.
So I'm I guess how did you get started in music, and how long have you been playing? Maybe is my first question.
Yeah, it's so I've been playing in this capacity, writing kind of, um, you know, playing original music, solo music, this sort of thing for about 4 years. Um, but I have been involved in music my whole life. That's what my degree is in. I got a Bachelor of Music from OCU, up here in Oklahoma City. And yeah, I just have always performed, always like been a part of music, always sang, did choirs, did theater, did all this stuff. But yeah, I guess I probably started writing music about, um, well, I don't know. It's hard to put a timeline on, when I started kind of dabbling in that. But yeah, I probably played my first show in this capacity only about 4 years ago, and really got more involved in like the local scene. But yeah, while I was in school, I was of course completely involved in music. So more on like a classical side of things, like very, it's different. Like I was so immersed in this culture of music that's very different than the one I'm a part of now. It's totally influenced me, but it's different the way I navigate things now. It feels a lot better, honestly. I'm really thankful for the education I got, not only in college, but just like my whole life being educated by various mentors or people I've worked with or learned from. But I really like being able to just do my own thing. Something about it feels very right for me. I'm sure that's a thing that most songwriters can relate to who have maybe, like played other people's songs or been involved in like more of a classical setting or any experience of, um, doing music, but then transitioning into playing your own music. There's something so different about it. There's like an anxiety that's been lifted about just performance in general, because I'm not worried about doing someone else's something wrong. I'm just concerned with kind of sharing my own observations and, my own melodies that like I think this sounds nice. I enjoy this. Here's the thought I had, and just the way I think of my music, is it's just like there's a lightness to the way I think about it, and I think there was kind of a heaviness to the way I felt about, performance in general, kind of before I started writing.
You said you did theater for a little bit.
Yeah, I did. Oh yeah, I grew up doing theater. Oh
'Cause
yeah.
your music, because I've known bands and musicians that had like a theater background, and their stuff is usually, I don't know what the word is, like bombastic or just kind of like theater kid, and your stuff is super subdued and doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's I guess been a while since I've done all that, but yeah, I was involved in anything I could get my hands on performance wise. But I think growing up, I just really didn't even know that like writing music was something I could do. It feels a lot less tangible until you actually, like until you do it. I'm sure you know what I mean by that. Like there's something about, um I feel like people think it's harder than it is. And maybe for some it is. Like there are things for me that, are so difficult that come really easy to other people. But for me, I found that once I tried to write music, it felt so natural, for
So
me.
in school, when you were getting your degree, what was like your focus? Was it piano? What was your focus?
Voice, yeah.
Oh, vocally. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I was taking like 3 or 4, voice lessons and like vocal coaching sessions a week. Like a lot of my education was just, private voice lessons. A lot of like just singing all the time. We had to have these things every semester called juries, which is something every music major has to do. But, vocal juries, we had to have our entire repertoire for the semester prepared. Maybe I think it was something like 8 to 10 songs. You get up on this stage, and the entire voice faculty just asks you to sing certain songs. So you just sort of have to be prepared to do all this stuff, like really kind of just very demanding.
Like what?
And it, it makes me like what kind of music?
Yeah, what would
Or
you?
it was like my first 2 years, it was only classical music, basically. Well, that's not true. It was a mix of things, but the first 2 years, first 2, 3 years, you're preparing for your junior recital. Junior recital is strictly classical music. So there was a whole bunch of that, like singing in Italian, singing in Spanish, singing arias, singing art songs, all that stuff. And then my senior recital, I got to do kind of anything. Like I played original music in that. It was, like I could sing pop music, do whatever kind of stuff. So it was some semesters it was more demanding than others, but a lot of my anxiety around performance, I think, came from that idea of like seeing other people do these very specific songs in this specific way, and like that's the right way to do it. So much focus on technique and just vocal quality, which is great. It's good. Technique is all good. All of that is wonderful, but it was a lot of pressure. I was like really proud of myself for making it out with that degree and just being like, okay, I'm done with school. Like I love the idea of going to grad school. I don't think I'd want to do it for music though. Nothing performance related. And I think I just am so burnt out on like, I don't know, academic,
Mm.
all of that right now that I can't even think about it. But I think someday I would love to go to grad school. It's just it's a little too fresh right now.
Well, your singing voice. It's funny as I listen because again, just kind of being new to like being aware of you. Your singing
Mhm.
voice felt it felt like there was just a really great control at like pitch and all that stuff. But it didn't sound trained when I really liked that. It sounded like um, I don't know, just a little more like a natural singing voice, and you're not. You hear people that are trained singers, and sometimes it's too clean. The tone is almost too just like almost like a MIDI sound or something. And you do a good job of I don't know. It sounds like someone named Maddie singing a song to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. No, I totally know what you mean,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I
and
take that as
I guess to finish up, did you have to unlearn anything to
yeah,
sing that way?
right. That I was just kind of on that same um train of thought as you for asking that. Yeah, no, I take that as a compliment what you were saying, because I think I was trying to make my voice something it wasn't, for several years, trying to make it sound like a very trained voice. And I think that all of that technique, like I don't feel like I lose my voice, really. Like I do feel like I'm in control of it, and that's great. But I did feel like I had to kind of strip back some layers to get back to like what does my voice sound like? How does it how does it feel when I'm just singing and not trying to make it sound like anything else? And honestly, I mean, to be singing like classical music, like these very vocally demanding songs, or just anything, like even like jazz or just anything that I had to sing, you have to work at it a little bit. um, you like have to put your full voice into it, and that's it, it is what it is, but it didn't really feel like my voice. And yeah, so I think kind of stripping back some of that and just allowing like what comes out of me to be what my voice is, and not really feeling like I have to manipulate it, that feels good to me.
We've talked so much about what you sound like, and I wonder if it'd be good to hear you play a song. Would you play something?
Oh yeah, yeah, I would love to.
And
um
just real quick, play maybe just test your keys one more time and make sure we
yeah.
I think that'll be good. Yeah. Oh, actually, let's see. I just heard a little fuzz. Let Go ahead and start your song, and if it gets too crazy, well, we'll just let it go. We'll just let it go.
Okay, well, sounds good. Yeah, I think I'll start with playing this track from my most recent album, the title track of the album called Archive. Before I do start playing though, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that I wouldn't be playing the music I'm playing right now, writing the music I'm writing, if it wasn't for the influence of all of the Black musicians and songwriters who have really paved the way for American music as it is right now. Um, yeah, and yeah, this has been a wild few weeks, but I would also just want to encourage um, other white people, non-black people, to continue to have important conversations with their family and friends and communities. Just acknowledge the fact that we are living in a racist society and we have to call out racism as we see it. Yeah, I just wanted to say that really, just that I feel that all musicians and songwriters owe a lot to the Black musicians who came before us. It feels important to acknowledge that right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this one's called Archive. In and out of a dream. I don't know what is real. When you first told me your name, I was scared I would forget it. So I repeated it to myself over and over again until it became ritual. My future with you, fantasy. In and out of dream. I don't know what is real. Now the thoughts of me and you have mostly subsided. The sound of it all has gone. Quiet, quiet, quiet. I'm quiet enough now. Soon I'll have archived you in my mind. In and out of a dream. I don't know what is.
Solid.
Is that okay?
Solid. Yeah. Um, I really love that song. That's one of the ones that I think of when I think of listening to that record that you made. What's the name of that record again?
Archive.
Cool. I one thing I like about the record is it feels super um like focused on the sonically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you could have said, "Hey, this song, let's do it on a grand piano. Let's
Mhm.
do this song on a whirly. Let's do this on the Rhodes. But it all feels like you did it on one instrument, and on paper that would maybe sound boring, but it doesn't feel that way. But was that on purpose to keep your instrumentation real limited?
Yeah. Well, and this is something that you might not know about the record, but I was really, really intent on um, it only being me on it. I think for my next record, I kind of want to just do the complete opposite and make it a little bit more community focused and really like bring on my friend who I love who plays bass, bring on this friend to play guitar. But for that one, it was kind of the mentality behind it that I was like, if there's any additional anything, it's going to only be me. It was all basically all the main keys tracks were recorded on a Fender Rhodes. Um, that's basically what every main track of the keys is. And then some of it was recorded like various like bassy kind of synth stuff or different things recorded on a Moog. I used this little Juno for a lot of things on it. Yeah, it was definitely all. I wanted it to be synth and keyboard heavy, but not to sound like electronic music,
Yeah.
like that was kind of the goal, because I feel like that's the way I like to play music. I've got my all my things around me, but yeah, I don't know, I just wanted it to sound like me, and I wanted it to sound like what it sounds like when you come to a live show and hear me play, but just a little bit elevated from that. Just some additional things, vocal harmonies, obviously like some layering, but yeah, that's what I wanted it to feel like, um, how it is when you hear me play live.
I
That
was another thought that I had when I was listening to it was that and I think this is a cool thing to say, so I hope it sounds right. But it just sounded current. It sounded like a current indie rock record. Does that make sense? But
Mhm.
it kind of feels like a fake out because at its heart, I heard like Carole King and Joni Mitchell type songs. Does that make sense?
Oh, and you're spot on. Yeah, two of my biggest influences,
If you
absolutely.
played those on a grand piano or acoustic guitar and just change the production a little bit, you would just have a 70s songwriter record.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that that was kind of the goal behind it. I think you put that beautifully, and I take that as a huge compliment. I wanted it to feel current, um, but also I kind of wanted it to have some of that power behind it of these like amazing songwriter women, like yeah, like Carly Simon, Carole King, Joni Mitchell, these people you mentioned. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a little bit what I was channeling kind of behind the album cover as well. Um, I wanted that to feel very much like it could have been taken in 1972 or 2019.
Oh, right, right, right. Um, okay, so let's contrast that with your rock band. Tell what's it's called Lust, right?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I'm in a band called Lust. Yeah, I play synth and do vocals in that one as well, but it is totally different. Yeah, it's very rock and roll, it's dancey. We use like a lot of like very beat driven, like it's drum machine heavy. We don't use live drums. We have a guitarist, bass player, me, and then we always joke that our fourth member is the drum machine, because Connor, my friend, has this like giant thing where he controls all the stuff. I don't see. I really don't even know all the what goes behind it. But yeah, we joke that the drum machine is our fourth member. But yeah, I love being able to write with other people, collaborating with other people. Um, it's yeah, it's very different, like what goes into that versus what goes into writing solo music. And I love both of the processes, like being able to just sit down and create a song from scratch and finish it all on my own. But I also love when, my bandmate will like throw out a bass line and then, I'm like, how does this sound? Like, what about this?
Yeah.
Kind of letting it all, and like not really knowing where it's going to lead. I love that process as well.
Do you how do those songs get written for the band? From not I understand how bands write music, but from you, like your part in terms of, and I guess I'll back up just real quick and say I've noticed as a songwriter, it's tough to switch that off. The tools that I know,
Mhm.
the tools that I have, and the method I know, it's tough for me to switch that off when someone presents me with a full piece of music.
Yeah.
Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro, for example.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it because all that work's done, but it makes it a lot harder to do my part. But I wonder if you feel the same, or do you,
Yeah. Well, I think the great thing about it just being kind of a completely different process, because I've worked with people in the past where it's like, hey, I wrote this song, like everyone kind of learn it, like add your own stuff to it, but like the song is written. With Lust, it's no one brings in like a written song or even really um, ideas. Like I mean like premeditated ideas. Like it feels very organic the way we write, and we have like just a great chemistry about it. We I feel like we're able to work really efficiently and like really organically together. But yeah, I think maybe there's a little bit of that it just like it happens in the room all together. Um, as opposed to like, here is this thing I wrote, like please learn it and let's all play it together. um I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but that is like, I think, just the two processes are so different that I just kind of have to approach it in a totally different way. And yeah, it gives me um a lot of freedom to like improvise and try things out. It's a really safe space to do that. I don't know. I'm glad that I play music with people who I'm not nervous to be around,
yeah,
because that's difficult too. Like feeling like you have something to prove, and we are all just like so comfortable and so silly with each other that it's just like, you can like try something and it's like that sounds awful, but like no one's gonna judge you. And I hopefully that's how like most people feel about the people they play music with. I think that's the goal. I think it would be really restrictive to not feel that way.
sure, yeah, yeah. I've found again this I'm interviewing you here, but I'm throwing out my own experiences to see what you think of them. But I've found that I've had to expand my definition of what a good song is because for so long, and I wonder if you felt this way too, but because I'm hyper into those '70s songwriters too. That was kind of like the peak for me, and or even going back earlier, but that kind of traditional song structure is easy to think of. That's what a good song is, and I think it is. But then I hear a song, I can't think of an example right now, but that's just way more formless and way more just like about the groove and the tone and the vibe that it sets, and the lyrics are just super simplistic, and you couldn't sit there and play them on an acoustic guitar at the Blue Door. It
Yeah.
wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it's like, well, that means it's not a good song, and that I know that's not true. I know that's not true because it's just whatever chemistry is happening. But I anyway, I don't know what. I just respond to that.
Yeah, I love the idea of that. And I I feel like I try to mess around with that idea a little bit. Like on my most recent album, there was I think like a maybe 50-second song on there. You know, it's just like this is just like a thought, I guess. Or there's another song on there that is just like spoken word poetry basically, that's like really like delayed, distorted, like a lot you can hardly even hear what I'm saying. Just a lot of like I don't know, just sound. It almost like kind of turned into an ambient track, which is really weird because I definitely don't consider myself like an ambient musician. But no, I think it's like it's so interesting when you just allow something to be what it is. And if you like write something that's just you know, so pattern based and like repetitive, and it has like 3 words total that are just repeated, and it sounds good and it's catchy and like it's a thing, then it's a thing, you know. So yeah, I love that. I feel like there's so much of that with new music that's coming out. I can't keep up with everything that's coming out that like I would love or that I do love. Like I feel like I'm constantly getting recommendations. This new album came out, or seeing someone post something on Instagram, I'm like, I should check that out. But it is amazing, like all the new music that's coming out, and just some very different things. And yeah, it's you're totally right. There, the traditional song structure is like what it is for a reason, and it's yeah, a great song is a great song, but there's also like so many weird things that are so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. I know I'm a little bit older than you, but there's these bands that I used to listen to like in high school and in the early 2000s that were and I'm thinking specifically of bands on that record labeled Tooth and Nail. It was like the Christian indie label that was safe to listen to in high school in 1998. But there's a lot of, I hear a lot of some of those bands, and they were cool bands. This was before Tooth and Nail turned into an emo weirdo thing. They had a cool window there for a couple years, and I hear some of that in Lust, and I hear some of it in What You Do, and I know we've talked about the '70s stuff, but I was curious what other kind of um, I feel like the '70s stuff is clearly in a cool way an influence on you as far as song structure and stuff. But what other kind of not '70s songwriters music influences you?
Yeah, I mean I listen to a lot of like current stuff, like drum machine heavy bedroom pop kind of stuff. Like I feel like that's kind of an influence in a different way. Um, you know, like with all the drum machine stuff I use, like I yeah, just like lo-fi bedroom pop kind of stuff, like shoegaze stuff. I really like R&B music. Like I don't know, there's just so much good music that's coming out, and I think whether I know it or not, it all influences me. 'Cause I just hear things and I'm like, that's cool. I love that. Or like I don't even know, like indie kind of songwriter women who are really like great right now, like Mitski. I don't know if you're familiar with Mitski. I don't know, like I don't even really listen to a whole lot of Mitski anymore, but I definitely did like a few years ago, and I feel like she was just someone who I was like, she is cool. Like she really, you know, she's like a great songwriter, and just like her discography is so diverse. I think there's something cool about being consistent, but there's also something really cool about I don't know, being willing to adapt and change and try things. She definitely does a lot of that. I think it's really cool. So yeah, I don't even listen to her much recently, but she's one person who came to mind that's just like doing cool stuff.
Yeah. Do you are you from Oklahoma, or where are
Now
you
I'm
from?
from Wichita, Kansas, so close. But yeah, I was born and raised in Wichita. I just moved here in 2013 to go to school. So yeah, about 7 years ago.
What's that breakfast diner in Wichita? It's like $20 a plate, but you know what I'm talking about?
I might. Are you talking about Doodah Diner? Is that
Yeah.
the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah. Yep.
Dude, we went there on a road trip a couple years ago. We were doing a family road trip and we stopped there and we were just losing our minds. It was so crazy. And then I've been telling it, telling everybody about this crazy diner in Wichita that they have to check out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Doodah Diner is such a thing. Yeah, Wichita is cool. I love Wichita. I loved growing up there. And I it's close enough. I get to go back pretty often, play shows there every once in a while.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. So, do you play music full time?
Um, n- Not no, I don't. No, um I teach music at the School of Rock
Oh
here in
yeah,
Tulsa, if you're familiar with that. I do that part time
you're
ish.
talking about ACM, UCO.
No, School of Rock is it's like an after school music program, mostly for kids. The one I teach at is up on May. I
Yes, sorry, I do know about that. I do know about that.
it's a lot of fun. I used to teach at the one in Edmond as well, and now I'm just at the Oklahoma City one. It honestly, it's weird to talk about what my jobs are right now currently in the midst of all of this. I've still been teaching some of my students via Zoom, but I also maybe 2 or 3 days a week before all this was waiting tables at the Mule in the plaza. Um, Love it there. Great people to work with and for. So yeah, and then playing shows all the time. I had just gotten back from a tour right before this. I think I've been really committed to not having a full-time job doing anything, being really flexible with the things that I'm involved in. Um, and both my jobs are incredibly flexible. So I'm able to just like take a month off and go do whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's playing music is not the way I'm, make all my money, but I do feel like it's the biggest part of my identity, and the other things I do allow me to make it that. And I think that's a really cool thing that I found too, that your source of income doesn't necessarily have to be what your identity is. And I actually find that I have so much more energy to put into the things that I love, um, because I don't have just this one thing that I do, that like is my career and my identity. And that could change. I'm 25. Like I don't know anything about life. Who knows? That could all change. But I feel pretty good about like what I'm able to do right now.
Right on. I was at the show at the Tower Theater that you played with. So it was Lust, and it was I know Husbands was the headliner, and then there was a third band, and I
LCG and
escaped.
the X.
What was that?
LCG and the X.
Yeah, that was such a great show, and it made me just feel happy because, again, I keep dating myself. But when I started playing music in Norman in like '04,
Uh,
I had my first band, and I felt like there were a lot of bands popping up at the time. I need to talk to someone with better Norman and OKC history than me. But I've always had this impression that leading up to about that time, it was maybe kind of cover band heavy around here. And
yeah.
then around that era, early 2000s, original bands started becoming a thing. And you could go to shows, and there were so many people at shows.
Mhm.
And that is just so hard to make happen anymore.
Yeah, totally.
And and obviously there's all the usual like culprits like, well, now the pandemic, but all the usual culprits like Netflix, and there's, or you can just sit there and stream it, or I don't know, all kinds of entertainment options. But there was this, to me, there was this sweet spot at that time where if there was a show happening, everybody just went. Like there's the rock and roll show. Anyway, the tower thing, it felt like a throwback to that. Like everybody was there and everybody was focused on the band playing, and it was a cool moment.
Oh yeah, that show was awesome. It felt like such an honor to be asked to play with them. The dudes and husbands are so cool, so sweet. But no, that was so much fun. And yeah, I agree with you. It was so cool to just like see a bunch of people out and be like, oh yeah, there are this many people who are interested in a local lineup. Like, I mean, the husband people,
Right.
like,
Right.
they have got a lot of fans and well deserved. So I guess it's a little different than just like necessarily an all locals show. But it was a local show. No touring band, like it was all Oklahoma City bands, and there were so many people there, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, that was probably the most people I've heard to, I think.
It was the most people I'd seen at an all local show in I don't know how long. Yeah, it made me kind of optimistic. Again, I hope the pandemic hasn't decimated everything,
Oh, I know.
but it made me optimistic about people's general enthusiasm around here for live music,
Yeah.
and hopefully that's something that continued to grow. I heard somebody talking the other day about how there's just so much talent and there's so much to see and do, and there's just not enough patrons for it. Like it's just a really imbalanced. I mean, most shows you go to, the crowd is mostly other musicians,
That's real. That's
and
very
you just wonder if there's not enough people that work at Chesapeake or whatever that are into like not uh, Kings of Leon. That might be their closest thing to something that's not on the radio.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think like people are surprised sometimes when they do show up to a local show. Someone who is not a musician, who's not involved in the local arts and music scene necessarily. I think people are really surprised. Like, oh my gosh, this band is here in my town. Like, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that'll take to to make people like want to come out to bands they've never seen before, or a band gets a good local following and then their shows are pretty consistently well attended. But yeah, I have observed that as well, that for a lot of really awesome bands, their biggest supporters are other musicians, and they just have not necessarily like reached a broader audience, in the city or elsewhere. But if they did, people would freak out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think too a lot about how the bands that do really well, and for example, and I'm friends with all these people, they're great people, and I totally get it. Like the '90s cover band,
Yeah.
um, and I mean they're consistently selling out the venues, but you got to realize that's people want to hear songs they know,
Yeah.
and they don't know your songs yet. They don't know my songs yet, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I'm always thinking through these things like what's going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have definitely observed those same things. I don't know. I'm with you on hoping that this pandemic has not killed live music. Maybe there will be like a just a rebirth, and everything will be even greater than it was before. Like people who never went to shows are going to start going to shows, and
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I hope.
Now,
Whenever we can do that again.
yeah. Now at this point, it's what is it? June. It's June 8th, and things have slowly opened back up.
Yeah.
Uh, have you entertained the thought of doing a show anytime soon?
I think I'm just kind of I'm wanting to follow other people's lead on that one, I think. And that's probably how a lot of people feel too. I think I personally would be too worried to be the one who's like, let's let's put a show together, because I don't know what the right thing to do is. I think that I've been trying to be more willing to admit that recently, just with everything that's going on. Um, just everything in the country right now, really, just like I don't have the answers. That's okay. Maybe someone else has the answers and I can listen. Maybe none of us have the answers and we're all just gonna have to like hold each other's hands and figure it out. But I think that's one thing where I'm like, I don't know, I would want to follow someone else's lead on that. I would love to play a show soon. I miss live music so much. And I actually, so I mentioned that I was on a little 2 week Midwest tour right before all this happened, and I mean literally right before. Like I got my last show was in Tulsa, on, my dates could be a little off, but I believe it was Sunday, March 13th. And then it was Monday, I got back home to Oklahoma City and got the word from my job, like, you don't need to come in, like we're closing down for like until further notice. And that's when like everything started happening. It was like, oh, okay, we're staying in. And I isolated for 2 weeks, like pretty I was pretty I don't know, strict about it, just because I had been traveling for 2 weeks, and it was, I had just played a show in Chicago and there were a lot of cases there at the time.
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I just was kind of all over. Like I was in like little Midwest towns probably where there weren't many confirmed cases, but I within the span of like 13 days, I think I had been in like 12 cities. So it was like I felt like I was like I just need to like be in my house now because it's all a little scary. But I do feel like I in a way got my fix on playing shows right before all this because I had just played like so many shows right before. But it also, when you get back from a tour or just like play a lot of music and record an album or anything like that just like really makes you want to like do more of it. So I was having that feeling of like I got home from the tour and I was like excited to plan a new one. And so that was kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost the momentum a tiny bit, but I am going to be looking forward to whenever I can play a show live again. I miss it a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any recording plans in the near future?
I recorded an EP actually last month, and I am kind of sitting on it right now. It's like fully mastered and ready to go, but I'm only gonna put it up on Bandcamp. It's I'm proud of the way it turned out. I went into it thinking like this is gonna be kind of demo style. I would say it's like, I still am thinking of it like a demo, but it's good quality demos. But I think these are all songs. It's 5 tracks. I think they're all songs that for the next album I record, I would want those songs to be on the album, but re-recorded. So I'm gonna keep it off all the streaming platforms and all that, but I want to pop it up on Bandcamp sometime in the next few weeks whenever it feels right. Um, yeah, so I did a little bit of that. I've been writing a lot. So I've been getting my fix of creativity just in a different way, But
Awesome.
I'll be excited to share that whenever I do. I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting for when the moment feels right.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your album, by the way. It's beautiful. It reminds me, it feels very like nostalgic of something. It kind of reminds me of like Red House Painters a little bit. And just like, I don't know. It just like felt really good to listen to. So great job on that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Red House Painters, man. I love what that guy used to do. I kind of like what he's doing now. I don't know if you follow Mark Kozelek at all, but
I don't think I've heard like any new recordings.
okay, he's you Google him. You'll get a kick out of. Well, you might be disgusted. I don't know, but he's he's out of his mind, and I like the eccentric guy just going off and going nuts. But anyway, sorry. Red House Painters and Sun Kill Moon. Yeah, I love that stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, your record was wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that, Maddie. Hey, this is so fun, and this is again like every one of these frickin' talks. They could go forever, and I hate the time constraint, but it's the world we live in. So, would you do one more tune?
Yeah, I would love to.
We'll wrap it up. By the
Yeah,
way, have you ever been to Mercury Lounge in Tulsa?
I have not. No, I have never. Hopefully after this, I will.
Yeah,
Um,
I really like it. It's got that kind of old biker bar dive feel, but they have such a cool. I mean, they've opened up their live stream for the week to. Then they asked me to just talk to whoever, and
yeah,
I really love talking to like people like you. This week we have like filmmakers and poets and just I don't know, just different people. So anyway, check out Mercury Lounge when the time is right.
this is such a cool thing. I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it. So thanks for having me. Yeah, I'll play this one. This is a new one that I've written over the past couple of months that is going to be a part of the little collection of recordings I'll release soon. Here it is. Let's see. Um, sorry, give me 1 second on it. It's like preparing to play a different song and then change my mind. Okay. Cool. Sorry, I know the clock's ticking.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, here we go. I guess I could take some time later, swirl around my I guess I could take some time later. Would that be too soon? While I am beside myself, baby, while I'm missing you, light a candle, blow it out, baby, you won't have a clue. Was it I ever did leave you feeling well? I leave my house to go to the market. Everything is play like the walking dead for the rest of my life. I'm the flame yet burning like a campfire in the hold my hand up, burn right through you. You won't feel the pain. Was it I ever did leave you feeling well? Oh, 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 oh. Was it I ever did leave you feeling well?
Very nice. Very nice. So we can't. Well, let me switch back to gallery view. We can't hear that anywhere else right now, right? No, it's a new one. World premiere. World premiere at the Mercury Lounge. Um, hey, we're done. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you so much for having me, Beau.
Everybody, listen to Maddie Razook. How can people find your stuff?
Yeah, it's on basically every streaming platform, purchasing platform. It's on Bandcamp, maddierazuk.bandcamp.com. If you want to download it from there, it'd be pretty easy to find.
Right on. Well, like I said, I'm a major fan and look forward to what you have coming next. So thank you. I'm gonna kill this recording, and then I'll talk to you more after this. But thank you everybody for listening. Thank you Mercury Lounge. Thank you Bobby Dean. Thank you anybody that watched and stick around. I can't remember who tomorrow is, but you're gonna love it. See ya.